In 1941, an Allied force, made up mostly of Australian soldiers, were surrounded, outnumbered and outgunned. Miraculously, they held out for over 5 months until reinforcements arrived. This is the story of the Siege of Tobruk. The town of Tobruk is located in what is today northeastern Libya. In World War II, Libya was occupied by Italy. Throughout World War II, Tobruk was seen as one of the most important places in North Africa by the Axis, as it was one of the largest deep-water ports on the route to the Suez Canal, a primary Axis target. The Allies' primary objective in North Africa was to hold the Suez Canal in Egypt, allowing them to communicate and supply their colonies in India and Asia, as well as kicking the Italians and any other Axis forces out of Africa, establishing de facto dominance over the Mediterranean. Whoever held Tobruk could easily bring in large amounts of food, supplies, and most importantly, fuel, something both the Allies and Axis would need in great amounts if they wanted to kick each other out of North Africa. Towards the start of the North Africa campaign in 1940, the Allies made quick advances into North Africa, capturing large parts of Italian-held Libya, including Tobruk. In 1941, however, the now famed General Erwin Rommel and the German Afrika Korps arrived. Their well-trained soldiers, modern tanks and high morale quickly beat back the Allied advance. As the Allies withdrew, elements of the 9th Australian Division, as well as British and other Commonwealth troops, took up defensive positions in Tobruk between the 7th and 10th of April. They numbered around 27,000 troops, whilst it was estimated that the Axis forces had over 35,000 soldiers marching towards Tobruk. They would soon become encircled, cut off from Allied reinforcements, out of range of most Allied aircraft and outnumbered. These men were ordered to hold the city of Tobruk for at least 8 weeks. On the 10th of April at 1:30 p.m, a wave of Axis dive bombers came screaming down on Tobruk. Their attack killed a soldier from the 212 Battalion. This would be the first casualty of the campaign and signaled the start of the Siege of Tobruk. In Tobruk, the Allies have set up 2 defensive lines, the Blue Line and the Red Line. The Red Line is a line of tank traps, barbed wire and small trenches that overlooked large open bits of desert, giving the defending Allied forces excellent line of sight onto any incoming Axis attack. The Blue Line is a large, more fortified line of concrete bunkers, underground tunnels and command centres. The Blue Line houses the headquarters of the Tobruk garrison, as well as most of the artillery guns used by Allied forces. The German commander, Erwin Rommel, was famous for being the creator of the Blitzkrieg tactic, which he attempted to use in Tobruk. The Blitzkrieg tactic would see tanks rush through enemy lines, creating an opening. This opening would then quickly be filled by infantry that would be transported in by trucks to fill the gaps and hold the opening. As the tanks kept rushing in, they hoped that they would cause havoc behind the enemy lines and break apart any defences. Leslie Morshead, the Australian commander, was aware of this tactic and smartly countered it. He orders his men to allow the tanks to break through and then have them focus on the Axis infantry, effectively beating them back and then cutting off the tanks. Then, using anti-tank weapons and artillery, the Axis tanks were encircled and destroyed. This tactic proves effective for Morshead. As well as this, Australian soldiers often went into raids in no man's land, harassing Axis outposts and supply lines, creating further issues in the already strained Axis supply chain and demotivating their soldiers. Soon afterwards, the Nazi propaganda machine started calling the Australian soldiers rats on the radio in an attempt to demotivate them. This interesting tactic had the opposite effect, and the Australian 9th Division proudly coins the name the Rats of Tobruk. Towards the start of the conflict, The Royal Air Force, or RAF, regularly challenged the Axis bombing raids when they attacked Tobruk. But as remaining Allied forces were pushed further into Egypt, the Allies lost airfields near Tobruk, effectively preventing the RAF from reaching Tobruk with most of its normal planes. All the RAF's long-range fighters in North Africa and the Mediterranean were committed to the defense of Crete, a large Greek island which was under siege by Axis forces. Luckily, in June, much-needed reinforcements arrived, with the RAF finally showing its face over Tobruk again, but this was not thanks to a recent victory. The island of Crete had fallen to Nazi paratroopers who quickly overwhelmed the island's defences and pushed the Allies off the island. With the effectiveness of German paratroopers being proven and Crete now firmly under Axis control, there is a genuine risk that Tobruk may be attacked by Nazi paratroopers, either from recently captured Crete or other Italian territories in North Africa. As the siege went on, continuous attacks caused severe attrition amongst the Australian soldiers of the 9th Division, the main defending force of Tobruk. Their commander, Sir Thomas Blamey, commander of all Australian Imperial forces, requested the withdrawal of the 9th Division. He is quoted as saying the health of soldiers had deteriorated to the point where it was no longer capable of resisting attack. In late August, the majority of Australian forces were withdrawn by the elements of the Royal Navy and the Royal Australian Navy. They were replaced by a mixture of British, Indian, Polish, Czech, and other Commonwealth forces. In September 1941, Leslie Morshead handed over command of the Tobruk garrison to British General Ronald Scobie. The remaining Commonwealth forces would hold Tobruk until the 5th of December, when an Allied assault pushed German and Italian forces back, leading to the end of the siege of Tobruk. In the end, the Australian and Commonwealth forces had held Tobruk for over 5 months, originally only being ordered to hold out for 8 weeks.